And for those who may just be joining us in now on our dedicated live stream for the Polaris Dawn spacewalk, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you with us. I'm Will Robinson Smith, reporter with Spaceflight Now. You're watching two simultaneous SpaceX events happening on orbit right now. On the left, we are monitoring the progress of the first commercial spacewalk being done from a SpaceX Crew Dragon spacecraft. Getting an overview of the crew right now and taking a look at the profile of mission pilot Scott Kidd Poteet, veteran of the U.S. Air Force with more than 20 years in the service, and an avid pilot in his own right, and also a colleague of Mission Commander Jared Isaacman at his company Shift 4 Payments. Sarah Gillis is a mission specialist with on this mission and is also a SpaceX engineer, one of the two SpaceX employees who are flying on board this mission, in addition to Anna Menon. Sarah Gillis, along with Jared Isaacman, will be exiting the Dragon vehicle during the spacewalk this morning. However, because the Dragon spacecraft doesn't have an airlock, the entire vehicle will be brought down to vacuum. And so all four of the crew members will be fully donning their EVA suits designed by SpaceX. Finally, we have Anna Menon here, mission specialist and medical officer for the Polaris Dawn mission. Also a SpaceX engineer, also has the call sign of Walker. Grew up in Houston, Texas, and was a biomedical flight controller for NASA before making her way over to SpaceX, where she's been on console for multiple crew missions, including Demo 2, Crews 1 through 4, as well as the AX-1 mission for Axiom Space. If you're joining us through our dedicated live stream on the Polaris Dawn spacewalk, you may be wondering about the box to your right. That is the telemetry data from the mission for AST Space Mobile. At this time, we're going to wrap up our dedicated stream over on the AST Space Mobile live stream. We're going to continue tracking that mission, of course, as that progresses, and assuming good ground connection and something excessively active is not happening with the spacewalk at that time, we'll be sure to bring you the deployment of those 5 satellites. But for now, we're going to sign off on that. So for all of you that are watching over on that, we're going to move you over to our Polaris Dawn live coverage in the next moment or two. Want to very briefly thank a few folks for your support, though. Thanks to that blonde space girl with a $5 super chat. A welcome aboard to Stigen Debouchier. Apologies if I just completely butchered your name, but thanks for joining us with the channel membership at the pad leader level. A welcome aboard to Kel. T. McGee gifting a Spaceflight Now membership. Appreciate that. And well-reasoned Superhawk marking 10 months as a channel member, saying, awesome coverage as always, Spaceflight Now team and mods. Thank you. And with that, we are going to wrap up our dedicated live coverage on the mission for AST Space Mobile. Again, we'll continue to monitor that progress and bring you updates over on the Polaris Dawn stream. So rest assured, we are keeping track of that as we move forward. And if you are just joining us here on our dedicated stream for the Polaris Dawn spacewalk, hello to you. If you're popping over from our live stream from AST Space Mobile, tracking the Bluebird 1 through 5 mission, welcome on board. Taking a live look right now from a camera positioned on the nose cone of the SpaceX Dragon Resilience spacecraft as it continues to orbit around the Earth. This view here a little bit closer to the hatch as you're taking a look at the mobility railing system called Skywalker. Of course, a nod to the famous Star Wars franchise and the main character, one of the main characters of that series. Currently, Dragon is orbiting the Earth in an elliptical orbit of about 190 by 700 kilometers today. According to SpaceX, earlier on flight day 2, they reached a max altitude of 1,408.1 kilometers. Taking a look back now at some video of mission specialist Anna Menon as she was reading her book that she co-authored, Kisses from Space, part of a fundraiser for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. This is a live look now into the SpaceX Mission Control at their headquarters in Hawthorne, California. Fortunately, because there's some copyright music that's being used here, we're not able to pipe the audio in at this moment, but you're listening to one of the patients at St. Jude and the impact that the Inspiration 4 mission and Polaris Dawn have had for them. Of course, Inspiration 4 brought aboard St. Jude's employee and former patient, Haley Arsenault. Inspiration 4 was the first fully civilian space flight, that free-flying mission launched and splashed down back in September of 2021. That little plush dog is named Asteroid, part of the fundraiser efforts for St. Jude. Let's go ahead and listen to SpaceX's Dan Hote, who's talking about where we are in the process of this spacewalk.
was started to get incrementally lower.
The pre-breathe process is designed to decrease the amount of nitrogen in the body, which then reduces the risk of decompression sickness, which can happen as atmospheric pressure lowers. Protocols like this are used for any spacewalk done today and might feel familiar to anyone here on Earth that has gone scuba diving and done a decompression stop after ascending from a pressure in deep water back up to the surface.
And to do all this, Dragon's just been slowly decreasing that cabin pressure. That allows the crew to acclimate each time the pressure gets lower. As they get ready for the lower pressure they'll be in the suit during the spacewalk itself. They've got the ability to pause the process if they experience any discomfort, but the ear equilibrium just kind of naturally adjusts as the pressure decreases. It's kind of like when your ears pop when you change altitude in an airplane. All 4 astronauts are going to be suited for the spacewalk today because Dragon does not have an airlock. That's also kind of why the entire cabin is going to be depressurized. That's why we have this kind of unique pre-breathe process with this stuff today too.
All of that brings us to now. So far, the crew has prepared the cabin for vacuum, which includes securing all loose items that they don't want floating around. They also completed medical checks, suit inspections, and final checkouts of the oxygen, venting, and nitrogen repressurization systems. After that, it was time to put on their EVA suits.
And now Jared and Sarah will be exiting the spacecraft today, while Kid and Anna will be supporting from the inside. Crew in the outer 2 seats, Kid and Anna, are going to be fully strapped in, and then the 2 in the middle seats, Jared and Sarah, are just going to be lightly secured ahead of the spacewalk, since they're going to be moving around and eventually heading outside.
As we listen into comms during the EVA, you may hear the crew referred to as EV1, which is Jared, and EV2, which is Sarah. Support 1 is Kid, and Support 2 is Anna. Again, they will not exit the Dragon during the EVA, but make no mistake, they are very much performing an EVA just the same, and their data is being collected as well.
Once everybody's in position, the seats are going to get rotated upright. Generally, they stay in the recline position for the majority of the mission, but we're going to rotate those upright during the EVA just to give more room to move about. After that seat rotation, the crew verifies that their heads-up display, or the HUD, on their helmet visors are turned on, operating as expected. This is how the crew will actually be able to keep tabs on the health of their suits, and they'll get some other stats of their suit operation during the spacewalk.
And that will take us to the first official go, no-go checkpoint to determine if the EVA can proceed. After an operations brief from the SpaceX team, the crew will announce their go, no-go status, and then it'll be time for the spacewalk to begin. It's expected to last about 2 hours from the time that O2 begins flowing to the crew's suits until we complete the repressurization of the cabin.
And just prior to we get to cabin venting, pure oxygen is going to start flowing to the crew's suits. That's when the EVA clock will start, so keep an eye on that. And this all gets followed by a suit leak check. We'll do the leak checks. Once those look good, Mission Control will start to vent the cabin, just removing the air in order to lower its pressure down until we can get to hatch opening.
Next, Dragon will use its Draco thrusters to reposition itself so that the trunk is facing the sun. This will help keep temperatures, communications, and spacecraft power stable during the spacewalk. At this point, the crew should be ready to open Dragon's hatch and exit the spacecraft.
After the hatch gets opened, EV1, that's Jared's call sign during the spacewalk, he's going to be the first to exit the spacecraft. He's going to go outside and he's going to do a series of mobility tests. These are kind of the core component of the spacewalk today. He's going to basically take the EVA suit through the paces. It's going to take about 15 minutes before he climbs back into Dragon.
After that, EV2, or Sarah, will step out into space to perform the same tests of her EVA suit before she then climbs back into Dragon. In addition to these suit mobility tests, Jared and Sarah will also evaluate Dragon's new Skywalker hardware. We'll talk more about that in just a bit.
And then after she's completed her test, Sarah will stand by near the hatch for the actual closing. And at this point, after the hatch is closed, the EVA is not over. The hatch door gets closed, and then the cabin has to be repressurized. We got to get all that atmosphere back inside. After we start introducing that atmosphere, we'll do cabin leak checks.
Once those leak checks are complete, the crew will return to their seats, and the EVA will be complete when the cabin pressure has returned to nominal. So, for now, the crew is suited up and awaiting final checkouts and EVA venting, which will bring in Dragon to vacuum. With everything on track, we're about 45 minutes or so from the start of the spacewalk.
And before we get there, though, we're going to expand the desk a little bit. We're happy to be joined by former NASA astronaut Mike Hopkins. We were fortunate to have him tune in with us during the launch, and now we've got him to talk to us a little bit about spacewalking today. Good to see you, Mike.
Yeah, it's great to be back. It's great to be back here in Hawthorne with you tonight on this very memorable night for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, EVAs may be new to SpaceX, but you have participated in 5 yourself while you were on the International Space Station and spent a total of 333 days in space. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I was very fortunate on my 2 missions. The first one was back in 2013, and I went up on a Russian Soyuz, and on that one we had 2 spacewalks. And the interesting thing about those spacewalks is they weren't planned. They were what
surprise.
we call, yeah, they were a big surprise for us. Contingency spacewalk, and of course, surprises happen at Christmas because that's when we actually went out the door. Our second walk was on Christmas Eve, and that was pretty exciting to be doing a spacewalk as everybody was getting ready to celebrate Christmas.
You guys were
down
just
here on Earth.
helping deliver presents.
That's right. That's right.
And then your first flight was on the Soyuz, but your second one, you were the commander of Crew 1. I mean, that was obviously really huge for everybody here. That was big for me. I was there with you at NASA still. That was a huge moment. That was the first long duration mission to the space station on Dragon. And I mean, you really got to know Dragon probably more than anybody because you actually got to call it home while you were docked up there.
That's right. I mean, I tell you, it was quite an honor to get to be a part of that crew, to get to command that crew, and it was a great, amazing group of people. Not only Victor, Shannon, and Suichi, but also everybody that helped get us there at SpaceX and at NASA. But yes, you're right, Dan. While we were on board, we didn't have enough crew stations, and actually, you can see a picture of where I slept while I was on board for that second mission, and it was actually quite comfortable. And one of the best parts about being able to sleep on Dragon is that I had a view, I had the window, and our other crew quarters did not. So I've got some amazing pictures from my time staying in Dragon.
That's amazing. It's great to have you here. I had the pleasure of watching you launch in person. I was hosting the Crew 1 launch from the NASA press site, and it was just so cool to see everything light up and just watch you ascend to the station where you made it your home. It was also so great to see you here around campus during your training period, just seeing you here on the mez having lunch, and that was really cool. And during that time, you got to get to know the SpaceX team pretty well. In fact, Anna and Sarah were 2 of your trainers for Crew 1, weren't they?
They were, yes. And I got to, for the launch, we saw some of their videos of training, and I thought it was kind of fun to see them as trainees and somebody else getting to test them all the time. So it was pretty neat to get to see that.
Switching it up a little bit because we're starting to get some views back from Dragon. We've been treated to some pretty spectacular stuff as we were, and all the way out to 1,400 kilometers. We like to talk about something called the overview effect. So kind of that first, and we're getting some comms from our crew too.
Yeah, I'm not.
SpaceX Dragon radio check.
Catch loud and clear, kid. Help me.
Catching loud and clear. Doffing continues, and last storage is going to be the cabin mic.
Copy that, kid.
Make that dawning.
All right, some quick comm checks. We heard Kid that Scott Poteet, he's going to be one of the support crew in there today. So our first comms down as we get ready for the spacewalk. But we're looking out the view. We're looking down at Earth, that overview effect. What's it like the first time you get to space, you get to look back? And, I mean, you can see horizon to horizon, the whole Earth below you.
It's kind of funny, Dan, because the overview effect is definitely real. But when I first got to space on that Soyuz, gosh, how many years ago? Almost 9 years ago, I had this.
You're watching our live coverage of the SpaceX and Polaris program EVA, preparing to make some history here with the first commercial spacewalk. Just been listening to a conversation with NASA astronaut Mike Hopkins, who flew aboard the Crew 1 mission. That was the first full crew rotation flight for NASA and SpaceX as part of the Commercial Crew Program, following up on the success of Demo 2 back in May of 2020. During the launch of the Polaris Dawn mission just a couple of days ago, feels like longer ago than that, but just a couple of days ago, we had the opportunity to speak with the mission director for the Polaris Dawn mission, Todd Erickson, call sign Leaf, about a variety of things. I want to bring you part of our conversation now as we're continuing to monitor the progress, the donning of the EVA suits is happening right now inside the SpaceX Crew Dragon spacecraft Resilience. But in this part of our conversation, talked with Todd about, what were some of the challenging things with this mission, and what were the most important pieces and some of the most difficult to surmount in bringing together this Polaris Dawn mission. And so here is Todd Erickson talking about his thoughts on what was the most difficult piece of bringing Polaris Dawn together.
The most difficult has obviously been developing the EVA suits and the protocol, right? Because it touches all aspects of the mission. You're taking the Dragon capsule, which was never designed to go down to vacuum, and having to qualify all the systems and subsystems, to operate, in vacuum and then come back up once you repressurize. So that's kind of a major thing. Developing brand new EVA suits, which are different from the IVA suits, right? The IVA suits are an emergency system, right? They're designed to protect you in the event you had many other faults that got you to a point where pressurization was an issue inside a Dragon. It's a different mindset when you're now purposely bringing Dragon down to vacuum, and the EVA suit is the only thing to protect you. So it's a greater levels of redundancy, and it also needs to be functional, right? This is the prototype and the first step on making a new suit that allows you to work and operate and do meaningful things in space. So, it's one thing to, put somebody in a suit and keep them pressurized. It's another thing to make sure that that suit is functional when you're there and you can actually do meaningful things.
And again, that was Todd Leaf Erickson.
2's next, and then EV1 and 2 are shortly behind.
Copy on that crew status.
Getting a quick crew status from Kid. I think I speak for a lot of SpaceXers. We really want to get up there and see that view, to feel that effect, to experience that. And being able to see it just from Dragon, and pretty soon getting able to see a couple of people go out of Dragon for the first time in a spacewalk. I mean, spacewalks are kind of like living on the edge with spaceflight. It's always really cool. It's really important for just about any program. Like, what are some of the things when you were outside the space station? What were some of the things that you were working on, Mike?
Yeah, so when I went out, I mentioned that first spacewalk as contingency. We had a failure. And so sometimes when we're going outside, it's not planned, and you have a component that is no longer working. And in this case, it was a part of the cooling system, external cooling system on station. And so we needed to go out and replace this refrigerator-sized pump module. And so that took us a couple of walks to do that. Other times we're going out and we're putting a new piece of equipment on board. Sometimes normal maintenance. Sometimes we're upgrading equipment like new solar arrays, new batteries, and things of that nature. And sometimes you're doing like what the Polaris Dawn crew is going to do today, and you're just checking out the suits and checking out the equipment that you're going to use in future spacewalks as well.
Now, with all of the experience that you have up there, I'm guessing there might be an EVA experience or achievement that you are particularly proud of?
Well, I'm proud of every one of them. Right, when you get out the door and then you come back in safely, I think that's what everybody wants to do.
Dragon SpaceX, for awareness, we're going to be commanding a couple fans right here. You'll hear them run, but then we'll also be turning them off. No correction required.
Copy.
Actually, if I can, I'm just going to jump in on that.
Absolutely.
That's actually a very important call that was made. You heard him say we're going to turn on some fans, because when you're in space, you acclimate to the sounds around you of the vehicle. And when it changes, all of a sudden, you're kind of looking around at what was that. And so you heard them give them a warning that we're going to turn on some fans.
Yeah.
And so that they kind of knew what was going. So that's actually a great call from the ground there. But anyway, going back to those spacewalks where I was outside, and what are you proud of? It takes so much to put these vehicles up into space, and so when you go out on the spacewalks and you know that you're a part of keeping that going. A big part of it is you don't want to mess up, right? Because people are depending on you. And
a couple of people watching over your shoulder.
That's right. And so when you get back in and they call up and they say, hey, that repair that you just made, everything's working, looks good, station's back up 100%, it's like, okay, that feels great.
Dragon SpaceX, our fan commanding is now complete.
Copy, we see soon.
All right. Hopefully no surprise sounds in there for him. So,
That's right.
I mean, spacewalks are something that you
We are continuing to monitor, of course, a number of different things here that SpaceX is involved with. Of course, they're still in the suit donning process, ahead of the spacewalk beginning. We're expecting that to begin nominally at about 5:58 a.m. Eastern, 09:58 UTC. So we're about 30 minutes away from the spacewalk officially beginning. At the same time, we are also monitoring this mission here, the launch of 5 Bluebird satellites on behalf of AST Space Mobile. As you can see on the clock at the middle of the big box, we are just a little more than 37 minutes into this mission, so making some good progress towards the deployment of those satellites, which is coming up now in less than 20 minutes. That's at T plus 53 minutes, 57 seconds will be the first deployment, and that'll continue on through until T plus 1 hour, 7 minutes, and 53 seconds. So we're going to continue to keep our eye on that, let you know when deployment starts, and hopefully there's not going to be a notably conflicting item happening on the spacewalk, but we'll try to bring you live pictures of those as they happen. Want to thank Well Reasoned for a very generous $10 super chat. Really appreciate that. And I'll echo their sentiment saying, thank you all. Please hit the like button. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, be a great help to bring some more folks into our live launch coverage. If you could hit that like button for us. Just shows the YouTube algorithm that folks are here and engaged, and we certainly appreciate that. At this point, the Polaris Dawn spacewalk progress, they're getting ready to rotate the seats inside. Taking a live look again at HQ in Hawthorne, California. This is actually a good timing with the SpaceX broadcast. So I was just about to talk about some of the upgrades and updates that have been needed for the Dragon spacecraft in order to prepare it for the Polaris Dawn mission. And to do so, turn it over to part of the pre-launch briefing that we had with the crew. So this is mission specialist Sarah Gillis, who has been involved with Dragon since the Demo 2 days and preparing NASA astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley to be the first NASA astronauts at the time to fly aboard Dragon. Let's go ahead and listen in to some of the modifications needed on the spacecraft to prepare for Polaris Dawn.
So stepping into some of the spacecraft side modifications that were needed to actually accomplish this. One of the more substantial efforts was upgrades to the life support systems. This includes adding a lot more oxygen to the spacecraft so that we can feed oxygen to 4 suits through umbilicals for the full duration of the spacewalk. There have been upgrades and additions to the environmental sensing suite in the spacecraft to make sure we have really good insight both before, during, and after exposure to vacuum. And what you can see here is actually a new addition, an entirely new system, a nitrogen repress system. This is kind of a closeout shroud over 2 redundant nitrogen tanks that will be used to repressurize the spacecraft once we're complete with the EVA. With all of these life support system upgrades, obviously there's a ton of testing that needs to go into this. And that's both at a component level, but then also at a full-scale system level. So what you see here is the Dragon spacecraft actually going into a thermal vacuum chamber. And we ran the end-to-end sequence, both depressing the capsule, dwelling at vacuum, and then repressing the spacecraft using all the software, hardware, and integrated systems that we expect to use for this flight. Additionally, at vacuum, we performed a long-duration dwell on the interior at vacuum so that we could actually bake out a lot of the materials on the inside, remove some chemicals that would off-gas in the vacuum of space before we're actually in that environment. There's been a lot of addition of new mobility aids to support suited mobility in the spacecraft. So you're actually looking up through the top of the spacecraft here at what we call the Skywalker. And this is a new structure that's been added outside the forward hatch that we'll use during the spacewalk, both as a handhold and footholds for some of the testing we'll perform. There's also new handholds both around and on the forward hatch of the spacecraft for interior operations, as well as some new camera views, both on the mobility aid and the nose cone to capture footage during the spacewalk. The forward hatch has also been upgraded to include a motor to assist with hatch opening.
And again, that was mission specialist Sarah Gillis, who will be one of the 2 members of the Polaris Dawn mission who will use the Skywalker that you see there on the far right-hand corner of these graphics and exit the Dragon spacecraft.
Back aboard if you want.
SpaceX copies. Don't have a ground station right now, but we'll go ahead and bring cameras back on board so we get it when we do have ground stations.
Copy.
Quick comms there.
And it sounds like we'll be getting some views from inside the Dragon spacecraft shortly once they reestablish connection with ground terminals. One of the items that's coming up on the itinerary for the Polaris Dawn mission is an on-orbit demonstration of the Starlink internet technology. However, because this is the first mission of the Polaris program and that type of Starlink communication has not been tested within Dragon in the way that they're about to on flight day 4, it is not their primary means of communication. So still have some periods where Dragon is not able to transmit live pictures from inside the capsule. But that could potentially be changing as things move forward and certainly be working to add increasing capabilities. Getting some upper stage views of the Falcon 9 rocket, well, popping in and out here. This again is the AST Space Mobile Bluebird 1 through 5 mission. Still in the coast phase of that Falcon 9 upper stage, preparing to deploy the 5 satellites. Currently T plus 44 minutes, 38 seconds and counting. We are now just a little less than 10 minutes away from the first satellite being deployed. As you're seeing toggling between the views of telemetry and the upper stage views. You can see also where in the world the Dragon spacecraft currently is as it's continuing to make laps around the Earth, orbiting in an elliptical orbit. That orbit, excuse me, about 190 by 700 kilometers. As we are awaiting the views from inside the Dragon spacecraft, it's going to be a little bit. You can see the distance from where the Dragon is as it begins to make its way back towards North America, at which point we should be able to get some views from inside the spacecraft. Let's go ahead and listen back into the SpaceX commentary as they're speaking with NASA astronaut Mike Hopkins of the Crew 1 mission.
Configured the vehicle and we're able to put that cupola on and launch.
Cool.
Yeah, very impressive.
Your mission patch sticker is in the capsule that they're in now, and
that's
will
exciting.
add their own sticker too as well.
Right.
All right. Well, as you can imagine, Dragon has undergone some changes for this, and with changes comes extensive testing for the mission. And all the modifications that we made in preparation for today had to go through kind of their own test regimen.
Yeah. Testing is a critical part of qualifying a spacecraft like Dragon for flight. Rigorous testing helps identify and mitigate potential risks, verify system and component reliability, and helps ensure that the designs meet the mission requirements. There are many types of tests a spacecraft might undergo when qualifying for flight, including structural, thermal vacuum, radiation, software, and integrated systems testing.
One of the tests the new Skywalker hardware underwent is thermal vacuum testing. This actually tested how Skywalker withstands the extreme temperature swings that it's going to see while it's in the vacuum of space. And while Dragon was being put through all of its paces, the Polaris Dawn crew was going through the same SpaceX training as part of that we give to NASA astronauts. They also had to train to perform their EVA, though. For basic training at SpaceX Hawthorne, they got trained on everything from orbital mechanics to just how to live and work in microgravity. Also ran through numerous simulations of what the full mission would look like while they were seated inside of our Dragon trainer.
In addition to ensuring that they're familiar with SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket and Dragon spacecraft, the crew went through an extensive training regimen to build their physical endurance and mental toughness, ensuring that they are well-rounded and prepared for spaceflight and today's EVA.
Now, switching gears, one of the coolest things, designed in-house by SpaceX, the EVA suit has all the functions of our original spacesuit with the added bonus of allowing astronauts to exit the spacecraft while in orbit.
And this mission gives us a great opportunity to test our EVA suits in space. Building a base on the moon and a city on Mars will require thousands of spacesuits, so the development of this suit and the EVA performed on this mission will be important steps toward a scalable design for spacesuits on future long-duration missions.
As we mentioned, SpaceX designs and manufactures our own suits, and we have a little behind-the-scenes look for you, something most people don't get to see, the inside of our very own suit lab.
An EVA suit is an extra.
As SpaceX is describing some of the evolution of their suit design, want to pause and pivot and actually talk about the Dragon spacecraft as well, just a little bit more. For those of you who are just joining us live, by the way, I'm Will Robinson Smith with Spaceflight Now. You're watching our live coverage of the Polaris Dawn spacewalk, preparing to really get going in the next less than 10 minutes or so is when the spacewalk is set to begin, or less than 20 minutes, 5:58 a.m. Eastern, about 5:41 a.m. at the moment. The vehicle is preparing to go down to vacuum for the first time with crew members on board. And in the lead up to this mission, we asked SpaceX's Bill Gerstenmaier, the vice president of build and flight reliability for SpaceX, formerly with NASA, about the impact of the Polaris Dawn mission on SpaceX and its work towards certifying its Dragon spacecraft for more than 5 flights apiece. And so want to bring a little bit of his thoughts, as well as Sarah Gillis, on the impact of Polaris Dawn in preparing Dragon to go beyond its current 5 flights.
There's a couple things. The high altitude will give us exposure to this high radiation environment, which will test a lot of avionics systems and their ability to recover. We build a lot of auto sequences to take care of that for us, but we'll see how it really works. We'll also get a chance to see the laser communication, which I think is a big deal moving forward. And then I think a lot of the suit activities, even though they're not, they're geared more towards mobility. So some of the joints and some of the motion and activities are more geared towards walking on another terrestrial body than they are just doing the EVA. So we're going to learn all that as we move forward. So I think there's a lot of neat technology that this crew has already helped us learn, but now we're going to actually see them demonstrate in space. So I'm pretty excited about this mission and what we're going to learn.
Yeah, and I think just to add one thing, one of the things I'm most excited about from this development effort is all of the learnings that are going to go back into Dragon operation. New software features, new, how the suits are constructed. There is learning across every single team, materials, engineering, you name it. There has been development and there has been lessons learned. One of my favorite things training crew over crew is seeing how every single flight gets better, and that's what SpaceX does. They take the lessons learned and they immediately incorporate it into future vehicles. So I'm actually really looking forward to the debriefs to just see that comprehensive look at all the lessons we're going to be moving into future human spaceflight.
As SpaceX is discussing some of the evolution of the suit here in this video, which unfortunately has some copyright music, which is why we're not able to play that audio for you. We did have the opportunity to speak with Mission Commander Jared Isaacman one-on-one about the mission to learn a little bit more about the importance of the EVA and some of the goals that they want to achieve here. So this is Mission Commander Jared Isaacman on his thoughts on the EVA that they're about to perform.
I mean, the primary objective is the suit is collecting data on the suit itself. So we have a 3-phase suit test matrix from single-handed operations, translation, hands-free demonstrations, with and without disturbances as if we were using tools. So that is, its primary objective is gathering data on the suit to inform design iteration. There is a Block 1.5 suit that's probably already in works. So we want to get feedback to it. And second is also gaining operational experience for SpaceX for EVA operations. I mean, right now that knowledge is limited to just to a handful of government space agencies. There's a lot to it when you intentionally vent down a vehicle to vacuum. Now you own all the risks associated with that. So like decompression sickness, normally it would be NASA's flight surgeons that have 60 years of data passed down on how to manage those risks that SpaceX flight surgeons had to build up that knowledge to, and then put in place measures to mitigate those risks. Contingency operations, incapacitated crew members, those are all things that have only ever been trained inside like 2 or 3 facilities in the entire world. And if you do envision a future where there are, thousands of people, in low Earth orbit working on habitats, building space stations or on another planet, like those capabilities have to start to make their way through commercial industry. So primary objective for sure is about the suit to inform suit design changes. Secondary objective is the operations itself and what we can learn to improve upon it for the future. Ideally, working into a no pre-breathe state where people could truly put on a suit and exit a vehicle very, very quickly, as opposed to this, we have a multi-day pre-breathe, for example, on Polaris Dawn. So, that's like kind of, those are the objectives as it relates to the EVA. This obviously will not be the last SpaceX EVA, so there's a lot to learn from it. And then in terms of just, I don't know, the visuals associated with it, right? I mean, I'm sure it's going to be incredible. I would have a hard time actually believing it could trump the view from the cupola on Inspiration 4. I mean, that was a monster window. And I mean, the views were incredible, and you had no idea where the glass was. I mean, we had to enter the cupola on I-4 with our hand above our head, just because you had no idea when you were going to make contact with that glass. So that kind of tells you what it was like being inside it. So I don't know if the views could ever trump that, but I don't know, it'll be a different altitude, and I'm sure we're going to take some time to look at the world around us.
Now, of course, is Mission Commander Jared Isaacman talking about the importance of the extravehicular activity or spacewalk that they are about to perform here in the next little bit. It's currently 5:49 a.m. Eastern here on the East Coast. We're about 10 minutes away, if all is on track with the spacewalk on the timeline that they've published. Meanwhile, as far as the AST Space Mobile Bluebird mission, we are currently T plus 57 minutes, 34 seconds and counting. Appears they're not in view of a good ground station, so we're not getting onboard camera views. But at this point in the flight, they should have deployed both the first and the second of the Bluebird satellites. And we are coming upon the deployment of the third one. It's coming up at about T plus 58 minutes and 37 seconds. So we'll hang on this telemetry graphic here for about the next minute or so and see if we can't get some views of that deployment for you. And we're just about 10 seconds or so away from the deployment of that next Bluebird satellite. And assuming everything is on track, let's see. Looks like based off of the graphic from SpaceX that we have passed the point of deployment for the first 3 satellites. We're coming upon the 4th here as we're just about an hour into this mission. Deployment of the 4th of the Bluebird satellites coming up T plus 1 hour, 2 minutes, 22 seconds. We're coming up on the point at which we should be hearing about the suit leak checks. regarding the Polaris Dawn spacewalk mission. The first event that's coming up, though, as the spacewalk officially begins, will be the suit purge. They've been going through a pre-breathe protocol that they practiced extensively on the ground and work through with SpaceX to make sure that they can safely purge nitrogen from their body as they prepare to bring the spacecraft down to vacuum, start breathing more of a pure oxygen. They prepare to have Jared and then Sarah exit the vehicle in turn. Hearing some call outs during the spacewalk, with Jared being referred to as EV1. Getting some live views now of the Bluebird satellites. See a couple of them still hanging around on the spacecraft. You should be coming up on deployment of the fourth one here in the next minute. Get deployment of the fourth of these Bluebird satellites expected at T plus 1 hour, 2 minutes, 22 seconds. Now coming on about 30 seconds away from that deployment. There you see deployment of the Bluebird satellite. Been a good deployment sequence for SpaceX. You can see
one is completing glove zipper closures, but at this time we are ready for seat rotation.
Copy that for seat rotation. Can you confirm crew is ready with the current glove zipper ops?
All right, I guess they just needed me to say it was coming soon, and then there it is. But we are going to hear the seat rotation coming up soon. Again, they're in the recline position.
And I'll do standby well to get them to the seat.
Copy. Standing by.
monitoring for seat rotation there on the Crew Dragon Resilience, as we are also tracking the deployment of the fifth and final Bluebird satellite for AST Space Mobile, which will bring this mission to a close. That final deployment coming up at about T plus 1 hour, 7 minutes, and 53 seconds. You can just get a little peek of it.
Rotation.
SpaceX copies. Initiating seat rotation.
Good call out on seat rotation here. The benefit of rotating the seats, according to SpaceX, is that it will give them a little bit more room for mobility as they are performing the spacewalk. Looks like the Falcon 9 upper stage is coming into an orbital sunrise here. You can see more of the upper stage starting to get illuminated.
All right, seat rotation's complete, so now they're going to start doing that tear, getting ready.
Dragon, copy, do you see the phone?
Copy, and can I get a confirmation of completion per the call out in 2.18?
H1 SpaceX, complete with 2.18.
Copy. At this time, you are go to step into section 3 and tear suit deucers.
Copy, stepping into it.
Just a quick reminder, in case if you missed the top of the show, we're going to be referring to the crew a little differently for the EVA activity than we were previously. So we heard Anna talk EV1. That was referring to Jared. So basically his call sign for this spacewalk operation is EV1. Sarah's call sign will be EV2. Anna will be support 2, and Scott will be support 1. Also, Scott and Sarah are switching seats. Perhaps they already have. Yeah.
Copy, standby for HUD power for pressure sensor checkouts.
Okay, so our suit tear completed. So next up is going to be the HUD checkout. So the HUD, your heads-up display.
Very excited about this.
Really excited about this. And Mike, I'd love to kind of get your perspective on this real quick. We do have on your screen, though, that's your seat order. So you've got EV1. Jared is in that seat. He's going to be in that seat right now, but once we actually get ready to open the hatch and everything, he's going to be positioned kind of over by the hatch. And then Sarah, EV2, is going to be in one of those center seats. Then you'll have Anna and Kid on either side.
Dragon SpaceX, suit HUD's powered. Report results of primary sensor HUD checks in 3.2.
So again, that's our seat layout. We just heard the HUDs are powered on, so they've got heads-up displays actually being kind of projected on their visor in their helmet, which if you've ever seen spacesuits, that's always kind of felt like that's that space age technology that we're missing. Because Mike, you use kind of a simple.
We'll come back to the Polaris Dawn commentary in just a second here, but just noting that right here on your screen, you see the 5th and final Bluebird satellite has been deployed. And with that, it appears to have been a good and complete mission on behalf of AST Space Mobile, the first of their 5 commercial satellites now in orbit. And you're getting our first views inside the Dragon Resilience. The timing could not be better as one mission transitions to another, and we can let the satellite mission be in the past, and we'll focus all of our attention now on the 4 astronauts that you see here on your screen.
New seat, pilot Scott Kid Poteet. He will be support 1. And then moving around in front of us is Sarah, who will be EV2. And then just out of view underneath the camera, but I think you can see her visor, is Anna Menon, who is support 2.
Dragon SpaceX, we're on backup sensors. Repeat HUD checks.
The crew's going to check out those heads-up displays one more time real quick.
SpaceX, HUD checkouts on backup sensors are nominal.
Copy, good HUDs. Returning to primary. Standby for helmet camera checkouts.
On that heads-up display, they'll be able to see the O2 flow timer. That's kind of like our mission clock, essentially. Like once the O2 has started to flow to their seats, and they know they've got about an hour and 50 minutes, just under 2 hours for the whole time. They'll be able to see their suit pressure, temperature. Basically, it's a way to kind of keep an eye on things. And we were talking about it a little bit, Mike, but on the EMU is a little bit different.
Yeah, the EMU is certainly different. A lot of that kind of information is on a display right in front of you that you have to kind of look down to see, and it can be pretty challenging to see. In fact, a lot of the information you have to use a mirror on your wrist to be able to read it and know what you're controlling as well. You mentioned the timer. Of course, we don't have that kind of information on ours, and I'm not sure I'd want to know that because I'd feel the pressure of, hey, I got to get a lot of things done and I'm running out of time. Yeah.
All right. So they're going through these HUD checkouts again pretty soon.
Dragon SpaceX powering on helmet cams.
We're going to get the helmet cams powered on. Again, give you that kind of look right over their shoulders.
Yeah, pretty excited for these. We've seen them utilized during the training sessions that the crew has undergone, and we're so excited to see them live today.
Yeah, I tell you, the helmet cameras, I mean, it's going to be fantastic views, right, that we're all going to love. But there's also a very important role for those cameras as well. Like when we have the same thing, we have helmet cameras with the EMUs, and what it allows is your ground team.
Dragon SpaceX suit cameras powered. Confirm good health.
So it really allows your ground teams to kind of be able to see what you're doing. And
SpaceX, we see good video on both speeds, no faults.
And almost double check your work.
Copy. Checkout's complete. HUDs will remain powered. Proceed to step 3.3, operations review through 3.8, report when complete.
All right, so we got through HUD checks, we got cameras on, powered, ready to go. So right now the crew is going to go through, they're going to do kind of a final review of all of their procedures. Mike, you talked about this a little bit, like these things are so choreographed because even if you couldn't see the clock, like you're on the clock. So you've really got to make the most out of like every single second you're doing one of these.
You do, and of course you see that with today's spacewalk as well.
Dragon SpaceX repeating. Checkouts are complete. HUDs are going to remain powered. Proceed to step 3.3, operations review through 3.8, and report when complete.
Copy, and work.
And the reason it's so choreographed and important is because you only have so much time outside, right? You only have so many consumables that allow you to go out there. And so you want to take advantage of all of that, and you want to have every step very well scripted so that there's not a lot of wasted time. Now, that being said, it is nice when you're out there once in a while to just kind of take a moment, look around, enjoy the views, kind of trying to absorb where you actually are, which can be pretty incredible as well.
Every once in a while, guys, I'm a little tired. I'm going to take a minute.
That's right. I need to take a break.
I see my house from here.
That's right. Yeah.
All right, but like it's awesome. We're seeing the crew inside. We're getting close to the start of today's spacewalk. We're going to start flowing O2 to the suits, and that's when our clock's going to start. Right now, they're just doing kind of final cabin configurations. They're going to check the lighting. They're going to make sure that their umbilicals are in the right spot. That's one of the things you'll see. That's actually one of the roles that our support crew members are really going to. That's kind of one of their primary jobs during the spacewalk is to manage those umbilicals. For you guys, Mike, you had one. That's what plugs into kind of the leg in your suit, and that's what's providing like the breathing gas, comms, connections, all of that stuff. For the spacewalk today, it's a little bit different. This one that they're going to be using has some tethers in it for Sarah and Jared. It's about 12 feet long, so it's like about double the length of what you guys have.
So it's dual purpose, right? It's providing them the air and the cooling that they need while they're out on the spacewalk, but it's also providing that safety piece, right? So that if something should happen, they should slip or that they're not going to go floating off into space. With the EMU, that we use on the space station, we actually, all of those consumables are a part of the suit itself, and we have a separate safety tether that the first thing we do.
As we are awaiting the go, no go for the start of the EVA, just heard them talk about the length of the tethers that are connecting Commander Jared Isaacman as well as mission specialist Sarah Gillis. In the pre-launch briefing heading into this mission, we actually talked with Mission Commander Jared Isaacman about the decision to pivot this spacewalk from what was sort of envisioned in the initial renderings when this mission was in its infancy of the crew members floating sort of Ed White style at a distance but tethered to the spacecraft, to now using the mobility guides called Skywalker that's up top of the hatch. We've seen some live pictures of that throughout this live coverage as well. So this is Mission Commander Jared Isaacman on why they made the decision to shift things around, but noting that they're still very much going outside of the Dragon. He and Sarah will be, and their thoughts on this different interpretation of the mission.
Oh, we will be fully outside Dragon. I mean, we might move up and down as part of a translation test, but like we'll be well above where the hatch is. We're just maintaining at least, I think we have a hands-free demonstration where it'll only be our feet engaged in a mobility aid. We're just not going to be just floating around, which I think the picture was very cool and it's inspirational. And certainly, the Ed White photo is historic. But I think as Buzz Aldrin taught us that that's not the right way to do an EVA. It takes a lot of effort to move in the suit. When it's pressurized. I mean, what looks like really, like heavy clothing when it's unpressurized becomes super rigid when it's pressurized. So you want to be very deliberate with your movements. You want to make good use of mobility aids. It was actually a lot of that pioneering work from Buzz Aldrin that set up a lot of future EVAs for success. So looks cool, inspirational, which is always part of every one of these missions. But I think we want to learn from history on this one and try and always maintain at least one point of contact with the mobility aid.
So essentially now all of our crew are on open mics. They can all talk and hear each other, and they can talk to the ground. And so you're going to hear a lot more chatter start to pick up. Once we start the suit pressurization, you're going to hear almost like a shh sound. That's just the air starting to flow into their suits. How loud does it get inside your suit?
It actually is quite loud. That airflow is just constantly, which is a good thing, right? Because not only is it providing you the oxygen, but it's also helping get rid of that CO2 that you're breathing out. So you want that airflow to be constantly going. And so you always are hearing that fan that's making that happen. And so that is certainly pretty important. And the Vox thing, I got to say, it's nice that you don't have to push a button when you're outside there to talk.
Dragon SpaceX, we're about 90 seconds from EVA initiation.
Got some fist bumps going on.
Yeah.
And we just heard we're about 90 seconds from EVA initiation. So we should see them get the go to close their visors, and then they're going to open up one of the O2 valves on their suits to start the suit purge, and that's going to be the official start of our spacewalk today. So we'll get through the final goes, and then we'll see those visors get closed, oxygen start flowing, and we'll be off.
I love how everyone looks so calm and collected right now. I think that's a great visualization of just all the extensive training that they've gone through to get to this point. This has been years in the making. I'm sure they're excited, but everyone's focused.
It is an interesting time right now, right? Because one of the hardest parts I always found about
Dragon SpaceX. SpaceX is go for spacewalk operations. Report visors down, ready for secondary O2 flow initiation, and crew is go for spacewalk.
Verify your visors are closed. Secondary O2 valve is open. And that you are go for the EVA.
EV1 is go.
EV2 is go.
Support 1 is go.
Support 2 is go.
Dragon SpaceX initiating secondary O2.
And with that news, our EVA has begun.
So you're going to hear it referred to as primary and secondary O2. Primary is going to be that primary flow of oxygen to pressurize. Secondary is largely putting oxygen into their suits to help with cooling, but secondary is the first one we turn on. And so our O2 flow timer has started. The EVAs start at 3:12 a.m. Pacific. I'll do the math on UTC in a little bit. So this first operation, or this first step in the operation, is a suit purge. So inside their suit, obviously when the visor is still open, it's still a nitrox environment. It's the same as the cabin. And since they're going to be at a lower pressure than what you can basically live at with oxygen levels, they're going to be on pure O2. They're going to be a 100% oxygen environment. And I mean, you guys were kind of in the same thing. And it's because like your suit, you can't move a suit around at 14.7 psi, can you?
No,
maybe you can, but like
no, that'd be pretty tough to do. And as we had talked about earlier, that's why that mobility is so important, because when that suit is pressurized like that, it can be challenging to move around.
Absolutely. So here on your screen, we can see the Polaris Dawn crew. Now with their visors down, the EVA has begun. We are beginning to flow that O2 through. Now, we will, of course, bring these views to you as we have them, but due to ground station coverage, they do come in and out here and there. But every moment that we can, we will certainly be sharing these with you. I also wanted to point out quickly that the window near kids' feet was so much brighter than it was just even 5 minutes ago. We're going to be seeing that in stark contrast as soon as we get the EVA, or with the hatch open, and EV1 out there.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting you mentioned that, because as you're going around the Earth as fast as you are, right, in 30 minutes or 45 minutes or so, you can be passing in and out of that sun and going into shadow. And so that brings its challenges as well, because the temperature can change pretty drastically just in those transitions from night to daylight. And so it's an interesting moment when you're passing through that time.
That's actually one of the reasons that the visors have this new coating on them, different than when you wore a similar helmet. That coating actually helps to insulate the individual inside the suit. So when they're looking at the sun.
Dragon SpaceX, a reminder, after the initiation of primary O2 flow, EV1, EV2 will need to adjust Vox threshold low following primary O2 flow initiation.
EV1 copies.
EV2 copies.
Dragon SpaceX, secondary flow purge complete. Close secondary O2 valves and report ready for suit pressurization.
EV1 closed.
EV2 closed.
Support 1 closed.
Support 2 closed. SpaceX Dragon is ready for suit pressurization.
Initiating primary O2.
This is normal. This is with the airflow coming through. The crew members are on Vox, meaning that their microphone is on the whole time. So Sarah and Jared are going to be adjusting their audio levels as this flow continues to help regulate that.
Yeah, the voxel kind of attenuates, so it'll sound like this now, but as we get through the spacewalk, it'll kind of come down, and you'll just hear voices a little bit more clearly. Their voices are actually going to change too. Like, did that happen to you? Did that throw you, Mike, the first time you heard that?
It absolutely did. Yeah, because you're talking and you're going, "Who is that?" Right? 'Cause you don't realize how much different it can sound.
Yeah.
Your voice can sound in that lower pressure environment.
Yeah. Speaking of lower pressure, we can see the pressure changing there with the telemetry in the bottom left-hand side of the screen. So we can see that suit pressure going up, and we're able to keep tabs there as well with the Dragon pressure. So Dragon on the far left circle, that's the pressure within the cabin, and then suit, obviously that's the pressure within the suits. So we'll actually be able to, and I think we've kind of been able to see it already, that these suits will inflate a little bit, look a little different. And we were talking about the visors before, so when they're in the sunlight, that coating will help keep them cool and not overheat them, and then when they're in shadow, it'll help keep them warm. So,
and it's also like your sunglasses as well.
Yeah.
Right? It serves that purpose.
All right, so at this moment, the suits are getting their primary pressurization. This takes about 3.5 minutes, a little bit less, and then we're going to go through those actual suit leak checks. The crew will probably get a reminder they have to stay really still when we do those leak checks, and I always was kind of wondering, like, why the heck? And like, if you bend your arms, you're actually going to start, changing the volume inside the suit. That'll cause pressure spikes, and so
that's right.
You got to stay really still.
Yep.
And then after we get through the leak checks, we're going to go through kind of that final pre-breathe where they're going to hang out in that 100% O2 environment just to continue purging all of that excess nitrogen.
Suit pressure stable and purge complete. Activate secondary flow on. Report when complete.
EV1 open. Port 1 open.
Port 2 open.
And right there, they finished the purge, and they did a quick reinitiation of that secondary flow check.
Response, close secondary flow, and report when complete.
EV1 closed.
Port 2 closed. Port 1, are you closed?
Port 1, SpaceX, can you confirm secondary flow is closed?
These handles that we see Jared holding on to, these were one of the additions or customizations for this mission that we talked about earlier.
Support 1, SpaceX contact.
We got you.
All right, copy. Got support 1.
Copy.
Dragon SpaceX beginning suit leak check evaluation and then still for leak checks.
Once again, that background noise is expected. That is the microphones and the flow of air within the suits. So we're trying to stay quiet to, along with you, listen in on what the crew comms are as they go through. We're also going to get views in and out, as we mentioned before, due to ground station coverage.
Continuing suited prebrief.
And it is a little bit tough to hear. We just heard, though, that we got 4 good leak checks on their suits, and now they're going to be in this final suited pre-breathe. And so again, this is going to last about 19 or so minutes, and this is just to do kind of that final, get all of the excess nitrogen out. And we started pre-breathe just two hours after they got on orbit, just by gradually lowering the pressure. And I mean, pre-breathe, that's something that kind of evolved over time with the space station. Where were you when you were doing your spacewalks?
Yeah, so we were past the kind of the camp out phase of pre-breathe. But that's how we used to do it. And it's very similar to what the Polaris Dawn crew has been doing over the last couple of days. We'd actually have astronauts stay inside the crew lock overnight at a lower pressure, just like they did when they first got on orbit. Now we've moved on to, we do it the day of. It still is a long day. We start about 6 hours prior to going out the door, but it's not 2 days prior.
It's worth noting along the lines of training and how the crew prepared for this mission that all 4 of our Polaris Dawn crew members and some additional Polaris and SpaceX crew members actually went into a vacuum chamber and tested these suits out and spent a bit of time at lower pressure just to help learn what that feels like and get used to it.
Well, and I think the other thing that's important about that is it's real, right? It's the first time that you're in that suit and it's actually a vacuum around you, right? And there's just something mentally that I think is important to put people through those moments before you actually have to experience the first time in space.
Yep.
We saw some of the unique ways we train the crew for this. And I mean, training for space station spacewalks, I'm still really upset I never got in the pool. That looks like one of the coolest parts of being an astronaut is not being in space, but just doing some of this training.
Yeah, Dan, I tell you, I can still remember the first time I stuck my head underwater, not in the suit, but for diving. But you can hear the comms of everything that's going on through the water like that, and it just gives me goosebumps to think about that. It was a really neat environment, but it looks like these guys had a pretty neat way to train as well with the harness that would hoist them up and out and all of that. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, we definitely created some rigorous new training for the best we could simulate an EVA while still on Earth with hoists and it was a lot of fun to watch them train.
Back on board with cameras in 3 minutes.
So our core just called up. We'll get views back on board in about 3 minutes. As Kate talked about earlier, we're using ground stations for our video coverage. All of our communication with the astronauts are through TDRS, so tracking and data relay satellites. So we'll have constant audio, but that video, we need those ground stations. But right now they're in that pre-breathe. That final pre-breathe still. We started our spacewalk about 13 minutes ago. We initiated O2 flow to the suits. That time was 3:12 a.m. Pacific, 10:12 UTC. I did some quick math. Took me 13 minutes to do it, but I did it. So once they're through this pre-breathe, we're going to start getting into some really exciting parts of the spacewalk. And then after we get through the pre-breathe, we're going to get to cabin vents. So, what's going through your head when you're like, man,
it's happening.
The air's going out.
It's really happening.
It's happening.
Yeah, I tell you, it is a long process to get get to this point, right? They've been prepping for this for 2 days, right? And one of the hardest things I found about the spacewalks is the waiting.
Hurry up and wait.
Hurry up and wait, right? You are so ready to go out and to do this mission and to go out that hatch, and it just takes time. And I think that's one of the things you talked about, my fifth versus my first. Your fifth, you kind of understand how long it's going to take. You have a better appreciation for how long it's going to take. And so you literally find yourself in these moments when you're kind of waiting through this pre-breathe, or you're waiting for the airlock to depressurize. You just kind of find yourself just floating there, kind of zoning out, trying to keep yourself calm and relaxed, and until that moment when it's game time.
Yeah. Now, just a quick mention, we're about a minute out until we get those views back inside the cabin. The view that we had previously was our Dragon tracker, which if you want to see where Dragon is, you can actually look that up as well. We have it on our website, spacex.com/follow-dragon. But yeah, just as a reminder, our crew, they are in their designated, or well, Jared's not, but
He's floating.
our crew members, basically Sarah and Kid, have switched their seats for the EVA. Last time we were able to see inside the cabin, we saw Jared awaiting to open the hatch. So he wasn't in his commander seat, but Sarah is now sitting in Scott's pilot seat, also known as seat 3. And then Anna is on the far left side, and Scott is on the, we can see it there, on the far right side. And also just a reminder, their call signs for these EVA operations, Anna being support 2, Kid being support 1, and then Sarah being EV2 and Jared EV1, representing that Jared will exit first, do his activities, which include just some mobility testing of the suit, and then Sarah will go out and perform the exact same testing once Jared comes in. Meanwhile, Kid and Anna will function as the eyes and ears. They will be performing their own list of operations during or their own list of tasks during the EVA. So while Sarah and Jared are going to be the ones that are, partially egressing the capsule once that forward door is open, Kid and Anna will also be performing an EVA in their own right.
That's right. And we talked about it earlier, first time 4 people exposed to the vacuum of space. There's a lot of firsts in this. That's going to be a really cool first, not just for us and Dragon. But we are going to be getting views back really soon. We're, again, just in that final pre-breathe step right now. And then we're going to start venting Dragon down to near vacuum. So we're going to have a couple of different valves that are going to open up, and the atmosphere inside Dragon is going to start going overboard out into the vacuum of space. Now, the crew, the ground, they can pause that cabin venting if they need to. We can pause and resume. The most likely reason is for ear equalization, is again, you're going through a lot of pressure changes anytime you do a spacewalk. And so if you've ever flown on an airplane and your ears popped, you've experienced just a little bit of what they might be going through right now. Once we start cabin venting, if we terminate or abort the spacewalk during that venting, we cannot start again. We talked a little bit earlier about how consumables are like the thing that really drives you. And for us, we don't have a great big airlock with this, with a full station's worth of oxygen and stuff like that.
Suited pre-breathe complete. Confirm pre-breath for venting at pre-breathe complete.
EV1's go. Forward go. Support down.
Copy, initiating cabin venting.
There we go.
That is great news.
Exciting.
So that breathing of increase, that pre-breathe where they were breathing increased oxygen, we just heard that they're good. They all 4 crew members gave the go. So now we're gonna vent the cabin.
Yeah, in total, this will take. In total, this will take about 8 minutes, and you can the graphics you see on your screen, that's live telemetry, everybody. So you can see the pressure inside Dragon starting to tick down. You're going to see the suit pressure tick down as well, is what we're really trying to maintain is a pressure differential. And so with these suits, we're going to be hovering right around 5 or so. You might see about 4.9 to 5.1, 5.2. It'll be about 4.9, and then we'll probably see it go up a little bit when they reinitiate the secondary flow for cooling.
Copy 7.
Yeah, Dan, and you talked about that, about 5 PSI is what the suit will be. We're actually a little bit lower in the EMU.
Yeah.
And so we've talked a lot about mobility. That difference between we're at 4.2 and they're going to be at 5, it can actually make quite a bit of difference just in how hard it can be to move the suit around, et cetera.
Yeah, this crew got to, and that's something we can simulate, you know, in a vacuum chamber or even just in 14.7. You can simulate that differential pressure. Getting calls from the crew. They're monitoring along.
EV1's good.
We're gonna hear that chorus pretty frequently, where you do those kind of frequent, almost like check-ins. And I know you guys did something kind of similar, where like you would have to pause and, you know, check your gloves, that kind of stuff.
We did. I will tell you, one of the interesting things watching this live right now, the difference is how quickly the depressurization is happening here versus what my experience was. And so you talked about being able to clear your ears and all that. You're not giving a lot of time for your ears to adapt to that lower pressure. So this seems pretty quick to me.
Yeah, breaking new ground with this, new suits, new operations for everything. We're at about 4.5. We're going to see that tick down. It's going to get down to just under 1, and it's not going to go all the way down. And then what we'll actually see is we've got a capability to open the hatch automatically. We've got a motor in it, but Jared's actually going to unlatch it, and he's going to give it a little tug to kind of break the seal, any of the kind of the stiction in the hatch itself, and that's going to kind of take the capsule down to its final vent before Sarah, who's at the displays, she's going to command the hatch to actually open.
Yeah, that's a good point. And you know, there will be slightly more pressure inside the capsule, so really just helping.
4 PSI, seat pressures look good.
SpaceX copies 4.
So Jared really can't open the hatch all in one fluid motion, so we will see him release that pressure slightly before being able to open it completely.
And I think one of the important things, you guys, I think it talked earlier about you put some more restraint devices inside the capsule from when I flew on it. And that's extremely important because there's going to be some force that Jared's going to have to be pulling down on, and he needs to be able to anchor his feet somehow. Otherwise, he's going to pull and it's not going to go anywhere. And so the new restraint devices in there, we're going to see how important that's going to become here when he tries to open that hatch.
Yeah,
that's one of the things. That's why we have Skywalker out there. We've talked about how kind of similar to Gemini when they were first kind of stressing their legs, but important to remember, we've got that 50 or 60 years of spaceflight history that we're able to draw on. These are new suits. This is a new operation. This is to, you know, work out all the kinks and really test this for the first time. But we're going into this with a whole lot more information than they had back then. We know you need handrails or it's going to get real hard real quick.
That's right. That's right.
Yep.
We did also hear Dragon's moving into its EVA orientation. Essentially, we're going to point the trunk at the sun under 3 PSI.
I think it's also interesting you notice that the depressurization has slowed down a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. So as we get to this lower pressure, it's just taking it longer for that remaining little bit of air to go out through the vents.
And TV1, com check.
TV1, loud and clear.
Loud and clear as well.
And also hear the Vox starting to adjust its levels.
Yeah.
That flow of oxygen has not stopped, but the microphone's kind of adjusted and it's getting a little bit clearer. And yeah, keep an ear out. You might hear their voices start to like tenor down a little bit.
I do think that's an important point, Dan, that how important comm is.
Yeah.
Right. And when it's compromised a little bit just by that extra airflow and the Vox not keeping up with it right away, how challenging it was just to hear those calls. And they can be some pretty important calls.
Of course.
Comm is just critical.
We can see Dragon capsule now approaching close to 2 PSIA. Like Dan mentioned earlier, that's going to get to just under 1. It's incredible to think that, the Dragon capsule in all of its power and glory and awesomeness, the new capsule is around their bodies, right?
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
what is going to protect them from the vacuum of space. And, just seeing how, even though it's puffed up and we know that it's, holding that pressure, it still looks so cool, for lack of a better word.
EV1's good.
EV2's good.
Oh, we're good. The flight crew dead.
Yeah, you really have 4 mini spaceships in there.
Pressure approaching 2 PSI.
I guess that means we have 4 aliens in there too.
Yeah, that's right.
Dragon SpaceX, less than 1 PSI from hatch operating pressure. We have a TDRS handover in 2 minutes. We are going to wait until after the TDRS handover to command into hatch open prep.
EV1 copy.
And yeah, I think you heard that, the TDRS handover. So there's going to be a short period of time there where they're out of comm, and it's kind of interesting because we're at a very critical phase as well. And so you want to make sure you have all the data and the ability to talk to the astronauts before you actually take that next critical step.
We'll see it. We're seeing that pressure continue to tick down. Dragon originally designed to be able to still operate in a vacuum. That was some of the emergency situations I know you trained for, Mike. We did make some modifications to this one to essentially turn Dragon into a functional airlock. We added some additional vent paths. We do use like some of the same ones that you guys use to like pressurize the vestibule and stuff like that. That are actually in the hatch, but we've got an extra one in there to be able to essentially do that depress as quickly as we did. But we're gonna see that get down to a little under 1, and then we're gonna see Jared kind of jump into action. He's gonna unlatch the hatch, and then he's gonna give it a little pull to break the initial stiction, and then we're gonna be able to see Sarah.
1.5 PSIA. All suits look good.
EV1 copy.
Now, it's one thing to note that while we have been progressing through this pretty quickly, we did have the capability to pause if any of the 4 crew members needed to, take a moment to, let their ears come to equilibrium or just kind of get comfortable again. We did have that option, but everything has been going really well so far. We haven't had to pause cabin venting.
And if you're just tuning in, heck of a time to do it. We're about
good timing.
A little under 28 minutes into the spacewalk today, which again, that started when we started flowing O2 to the suits of these crew members. That was at 3:12 Pacific, 10:12 UTC. We just heard that Dragon's now in its EVA attitude.
Handover complete.
So again, we've got Dragon's trunk pointing towards the sun.
We are with you on board, watching through the cross view.
That was SpaceX Core Arthur Berrialt, just letting the crew know that where the cameras are on inside and basically which camera is looking at them.
It's so fun to hear Arthur's voice because he was actually a part of our mission as well. In fact, Arthur was an intern started out as an intern
Wow.
when we were first starting the training, and so now to see him as a core and is pretty neat.
Very similar to Sarah, who also started as an intern.
Yes, yeah.
All right, we're coming up on 1 psi. You saw the light change a little bit through that window as we're in our EVA position, trunk facing the sun. That's going to help us with thermal inside the capsule and on the crew suits. Also going to make sure we're maintaining that optimal pointing for communications with the TDRS satellites. Once the hatch is open, we're going to disable any of the Draco thrusters that point forward, because you don't want thrusters firing off when a crew member's outside. We're at 1. You can see the suit pressure is ticked down too. There's about 4.7 difference between the suit and the ambient cabin there in Dragon.
That umbilical that you see there just to the side of Jared, that will continue to flow the air into his suit as well as provide telemetry and communications connection. That's also where we have the safety harness built in as well, so it's able to...
Dragon SpaceX, cabin pressure below hatch operating limit. Stand by for transition to hatch open prep.
Here we go. Mike, did you get to open the hatch?
I did. You did? Yes. Yeah. When you go out as
EVA hatch open front.
Dragon SpaceX, we're in EVA hatch open prep. Confirm crew ready to open hatch.
That is great news.
Hatch opening. EV1's good.
EV2's good.
EV1 good. EV2 good. SpaceX, EV1, we're ready to open the hatch.
SpaceX copies. Dragon, you are go to open hatch.
Go. Exciting.
Copy that, SpaceX. Go to open the hatch.
Mike, as you mentioned before, that continuous communication.
The hatch handle.
As you can hear, we do have a crowd gathering outside of Mission Control here in Hawthorne. In their excitement, somebody dropped a cup. We can see our commander, Jared Isaacman, now turning the crank, which allows the that top hatch to open. We'll see him give it a pretty heavy...
EV1, hatch is visually indicating open.
SpaceX copies. Stand by.
Should see him give that hatch a pretty strong jolt to release that stiction. Hatch is now unlatched.
Mike talked about, you see him getting his feet set.
That's right. Dan, you'd asked if I had gotten open the hatch. So when you go out as EV1, just like Jared here as EV1, that's typically the role for you is to open that hatch. And
you guys have to draw straws, fight over who gets. It's exciting.
It is. It's very exciting. Yeah.
Now, for those of you that have just recently joined, as you can see, we have successfully depressurized the Dragon capsule down to 0 PSIA. You see that in the bottom left-hand side, bottom left corner of your screen. Our 4 Polaris Dawn crew members have gone through the O2 flow, and we see Commander Jared Isaacman now standing by to open that top hatch. The nose cone is already open. It opened just shortly after the crew got into orbit. So
Dragon SpaceX target pressure reached.
Copy that, SpaceX. I'm unseating the hatch now.
Jared now opening Dragon resilience
Unseated.
into space.
So we saw some motion on the hatch. Again, he's just giving it kind of that initial tug. And then Sarah gets to push the button to swing that hatch open.
Much more movement there on the forward hatch. This must be pretty exciting for Jared because that center part of
Dragon SpaceX, that's a good brace. We're going to have you repeat the operation.
center of the hatch actually has a window.
SpaceX, the hatch is unseated.
Copy.
Let's give it another pull. The hatch is several inches inflated from what's really light.
Copy. We see it.
Looking out that tiny window there in the forward hatch, knowing he is going to have a much bigger window in just minutes.
Dragon SpaceX vent complete. EV1 return to seat.
And EV1 copies, transitioning back under the display.
So again, one of the reasons we had Jared do that was to...
Dragon SpaceX, we're actually watching that hatch. We're going to have you repeat the last operation.
Sounds like they're going to have him repeat them. One of the reasons we're doing that is just to kind of vent any of that residual atmosphere.
Up from under the display.
And EV1, you are go for manual hatch open.
Sounds like we got our first audible of the day. As we said, that we can open the hatch.
Opening the hatch manually.
We could open the hatch. We could open the hatch automatically, or we can do it manually. And so they just gave Jared the go to open that hatch manually. So we just went out of ground station reach, so we'll get the views back.
Wow.
We'll get the views back real shortly, and then the hatch will get open.
Hopefully we'll see a hatch open.
And hopefully we see it. Yeah, hopefully we see a hatch open.
The hatch is open.
SpaceX copies. Hatch open.
That is fantastic news for those that...
SpaceX EV1, I'm looking at the seals. Initial view looks pretty good. I don't see any bulges or indentations.
Copy on hatch seal report.
Yeah, that seal that you just heard him talking about, it's such a important part for the end of the EVA, right? So that when they close that hatch again, you get a good... Get a good seal of the hatch.
EV2 SpaceX, can you command open forward hatch? This is going to stall it open.
There is our first view of the forward hatch, wide open to space.
Forward hatch. Execute.
If you just jumped in, we are 38 minutes into today's spacewalk, and the hatch is open on Dragon. First view from a helmet cam, looking out.
Dragon SpaceX, we see it stalled. EV1 is go to continue.
That structure you see there is...
Check for egress. ED1, good. SpaceX ED1, I'm transitioning back from under the displays.
SpaceX copies. We're with you in your helmet cam.
Once again, this helmet cam, that structure we see is the spacewalker. This is Jared now egressing through the forward hatch of Dragon Resilience. These are the first views of the first ever commercial spacewalk.
I'm at the bottom of the mobility aid, progressing.
I have a feeling the crowd is about to go wild.
Good call.
Approaching the top of the mobility aid. SpaceX, back at home we all have a lot of work to do, but from here, Earth sure looks like a perfect world. Alright, SpaceX, ED1, I'm going to step into Test Matrix 1. Single-handed mobility demonstration.
Commander Jared Isaacman now emerging
Copy,
from...
we're with you in Test Matrix 1, watching from the nose cone.
Up, down, left, and right are threes. Pitch and roll are a 3. Yaw is a 2. Switching. Single-handed operations are fine. Static and with dynamic disturbance. Switching to left hand. Up, down, left, and right are 3s, maybe a 2. Pitch is a 4. Roll is a 2. Yaw is a 2.
So these are the suit mobility checks that Jared is performing.
Single-handed operations, dynamic and with disturbance are all adequate. Test Matrix 1 complete. HUD check, 5.3 PSI, 48% RH, 33.9 Celsius.
SpaceX copies Test Matrix 1 and HUD readout.
Crew ops check, EV1's good.
EV2's good.
Port1 good.
Port2 good.
Okay, stepping into vertical translation. We're going to start with the horizontal bars. All right, we're going to transition over to vertical. I'd say vertical and horizontal are equally workable, slight lead favors horizontal. I'm going to do a max reach. Left hand's at the top of the mobility aid. At the midpoint. You have good video?
We just lost our live video, but stand by 1.
Okay, switching over to max reach, switching hands. Copy that, SpaceX. I'm holding up at the max reach.
And EV1, go ahead and continue the operation. We'll let you know we're back on with live video.
Copy that. And for your awareness, max reach, let the aid, and the mid bar. Max test matrix 2 is complete. HUD readout, 5.3 psi, 33.9 Celsius, 50% RH.
Copy, test matrix complete and HUD readout.
Crew off check, EV1's good.
EV2's good.
We're good.
Poteet's good.
Stepping into test matrix 3,
And
hands-free demonstration.
EV1 SpaceX for ingress time.
Go SpaceX.
Recommended ingress time of O2 flow plus 47 minutes.
Copy that. Ingress time, 47 minutes.
And Dragon, we're back on live video from the nose cone.
Copy that, SpaceX. And SpaceX EV1, I would say the hands-free demonstration is very comparable to the trainer in terms of the foot restraints.
SpaceX copies. And EV1, when you have time, if you'd like to return to the reach demonstration, we'll take a look at that with the live video.
Copy that. Test matrix 3 is complete. The HUD readout is 5.3 psi, 47% RH, 33.8 Celsius, and stepping back into max reach.
Copy, test matrix 3.
And as you can see, top of the mobility aid. And let's get a quick crew off check. EV1's good.
EV2's good.
I'm good.
Poteet's good.
Copy that. Okay, max reach, whether it's left or right hand, seems to be about the same. Top of the mobility aid, and then the mid-road.
Copy, we see it.
Checking up from the bottom. Any go back, SpaceX?
Negative. We got about 1 minute until EV1 ingress.
Copy that, 1 minute. It's gorgeous. You want to see advised to get the umbilical around his right foot.
EV1, we're checking out your helmet cam now.
Well, I'm checking out your nose cone right now. And looks pretty good.
Copy, we'll return to nose cone. See you looking at us.
All right, we're coming up about that O2 flow timer time. Crew check for ingress. EV1's good.
EV2's good. Poteet's good.
All right. SpaceX EV1. Congrats for the huge team effort that it took to get us to this point. We know it's just the start. And I'm transitioning back into the vehicle. And SpaceX EV1, just taking a quick look here at the hatch shields. From what I can see so far, they look pretty good.
Copy on the hatch seals and stand by for transition to 3-off reset.
Copy that, SpaceX. Good. And EV1 is clear.
right, so Jared back inside. We heard him going through what's called the test matrix. It's basically just a bunch of maneuvers using different hands, using the foot
Dragon
mobility.
SpaceX 3.0 reset is in progress.
Calling out numbers. Right now, though, we're doing, you just heard Arthur call up 3.0 reset, so we didn't use any of the forward thrusters while Jared was out there. We're re-enabling them, putting us back in our perfect attitude before Sarah gets ready to go out the door. Fun thing to note, it's still not a perfect vacuum inside a Dragon. It's an open loop system, so oxygen is kind of getting dumped into the cabin as this is going on. So you got a higher pressure in Dragon than you have outside. So we're not worried about thruster pluming.
Yeah, now you mentioned Sarah, just like Jared, she will have 10 to 15 minutes outside, perform those same sets of mobility tests as Jared. Like we heard the Corps do with EV1, they will call out when there's 1 minute remaining.
SpaceX, attitude reset complete. EV2, go for egress.
There's Sarah's clear to proceed.
Copy. Crew check for EV2 egress.
EV1's good.
EV2's good.
All good.
Port 2 good. EV2 is going to go stand in the door and then step outside.
Now this test matrix that Jared just performed and the one that Sarah's about to perform, they have both committed to memory in order to execute these. We saw it being done pretty efficiently. I can't believe how quickly that time went by. Mike, we were talking about how your spacewalks were hours and these guys only have 10 to 15 minutes and it just like that.
Yeah, it can go pretty quick, and but fortunately,
Skills looks good. I see a little bit of a bulge between 14 and 13.
so you're hearing Sarah call out some more of the seal check there as she's exiting out.
It's reseated.
SpaceX copies that report. Good fix.
So this was something we knew might happen. And Sarah,
between 28 and 27.
Copy.
the crew trained on exactly what to do in this scenario, just pop it back in.
And
Reseat
one
it.
final between 19 and 18. That might be best reseated with hatch closure.
SpaceX copies. Can you repeat the location?
After EVA complete. Between 19 and 18.
All right, copy. I'll track that and ask again when you're ingress.
Copy. EV2 is proceeding with egress.
Super exciting to see this. Our fellow SpaceXer, Sarah Gillis, now about to make her spacewalk.
EV1, I'm going to hand this back to you.
Like we mentioned, Sarah will be performing the same set of mobility tests. So we will do the same. Try to stand by and listen to those comms.
I mean, I said it before, a lot of us work here because we want to do this.
All right, stepping into Test Matrix 1 for single-handed mobility.
Really cool to see one of our own out there. That's awesome.
And EV2 for awareness, we're watching from the nose cone.
Copy all. I would say in all three translation axes, I'm having certainly cross-coupled movements. Forward, back, I am inducing a bit of a roll. Similarly with left, right, and up, down, a bit of a pitch, but all are achievable. Rating is 3. Yaw is a 3. Roll is a 4. And pitch is a 3. Same source for left hand. Stepping into vertical translation.
SpaceX copies. And EV2 for awareness, we're tracking an ingress time at O2 flow, 5-9 minutes.
Copy, 5-9 minutes. Horizontal bars are definitely preferred. And I'm adequately able to stabilize my body with single hand disturbances. For both left and right. Stepping into max reach, do you have visual?
Affirm, we have visual on the nose cone.
Copy from bar 4 to bar 2, from top down. And similar reach from bar 2 up to bar 4.
SpaceX copies reach.
And EVA test matrix 1 complete. Seat pressure 5.25, 33.8 Celsius, 37% humidity.
SpaceX copies HUD readout and test matrix 1 complete.
Copy, stepping into test matrix 2.
Like we mentioned before, views going in and out due to those ground station coverage gaps.
Yeah, we comms are
some of the same.
Comms are through satellites, but we've got ground stations for video on Dragon. As you can see in the tracker, we just flew over New Zealand. We're about to go right over the middle of the Pacific. No ground stations in the middle of the Pacific.
Forward are actually pretty good.
We're hearing the voice of mission specialist Sarah Gillis, our fellow SpaceXer on her spacewalk.
She's got about a minute left, and then she's going to start heading inside.
And SpaceX with a little more work, they can actually get between almost bar 1 and bar 4 on max reach.
SpaceX copies.
And you could see the Earth dark, and we flew into like an
All
orbital.
right, and test matrix to kind of combine them, so we'll call that complete. Suit pressure 5.27, 38% humidity, 33.7 Celsius.
SpaceX copies, matrix complete, and HUD readout.
Stepping into hands-free demo. I'm able to engage and disengage my feet.
Copy that, EV2, and once you are able to engage, disengage, we'll actually have you start ingress. We're just over 5-9 minutes O2 flow.
Copy. With that, EV2 is proceeding with ingress. Pre-check for ingress.
EV1's good.
EV2's good.
Good.
14 good. Copy. Coming on in.
All right, and just like that, Sarah's going to start making her
All of the
way in.
plates are clear.
Check those hatch seals again.
SpaceX copies on striker plates. And EV2, I have one more ask for the hatch, if you can check that out as well when ready to copy.
Ready?
Right, and
Ready, copy.
Copy. And EV2, what I'll have you do is, when you ingress, can you get eyes on the hatch handle mechanism and see if the handle has been stowed in the do not stow window, and report if you can see that?
Check it. I think it's just outside.
Copy, just outside. Thank you.
Just outside the range. And for awareness, I do see a couple of those same points bulging again between 12 and 13.
Copy, your go
And
to
five.
address.
No, mostly between 12 and 13 right now.
SpaceX copies at 12. If you can, your go to address those.
Copy and work.
These numbers being called out represent the location around. Yeah, the location around the circular hatch, just identifying where these bulges are. So Sarah's now reseating that seal.
Not quite able to reach the back one, so we'll proceed with clearing for hatch closure.
Just like that, we're already hearing about hatch closure. It's incredible that these two EVAs, just in 2 blinks of the eyes, are...
ED2 is clear of hatch, please.
2 checks.
On your screen there is SpaceX Core, or Crew Operations and Resource Engineer. On duty tonight is Arthur Berrialt. This is the voice to the crew throughout their operations. Of course, you know, everyone has to sleep, so we have different shifts for Core. But Mike, your time in Dragon.
Driving close. You're good?
Copy. Deploying handle. Applying force. And closing.
Once we get ground station coverage, again, we will be sure to bring you views within the Dragon capsule. But right now, Sarah is closing the forward hatch.
It sounds like we might give the motor a try.
He's confirmed the hatch is visually indicating closed.
Command hatch is verified latch.
Okay, commanding EVA hatch closed. EVA hatch closed. All Dracos enabled.
Dragon SpaceX, we see EVA hatch closed and pressure indicates good hatch seal. Stand by for transition to EVA repress 1.
And EV1 copies. Everyone check secondary O2 valves closed.
Copy.
We're going to support 1 on this. EV1 closed.
EV2 closed.
O1 closed.
14 closed.
So a couple of real big moments right there. Sarah was able to make sure.
SpaceX, we
We're in
copy.
EVA repress 1.
We copy secondary flow is closed and agree. EVA repress 1.
She was able to make sure that the seals were in good spot. We got the hatch closed. You
Okay,
can
crew,
see
we're out of a half PSI for 8.3.
the pressure starting to tick up.
Just a final confirmation. Everyone confirm secondary O2 valves are closed. EV1's closed.
EV2 closed.
O1 closed.
14 closed.
Copy that. And we're through 1 for 8.3.
All right, so each of the crew just closed those secondary O2 valves on their umbilicals. Again, that was primarily for cooling. During the spacewalk itself, the suit's still pressurized by that primary. And now we're going to start to see the pressure tick up inside of Dragon. Right after they get the hatch closed, they're able to do kind of an initial pressure check. Because again, oxygen, it's an open loop system with these suits still flowing into the cabin. You're able to see positive pressure response showing that the cabin, the hatch was closed and was sealed. We'll still do a leak check on our way kind of back up to our nominal cabin pressure. So we're going to continue ticking up until we're about 8.3 psi, and then we're going to transition into the second phase of our repress. Really the difference between repress 1, repress 2 is how frequently we're injecting atmosphere, as kind of the repress is also pretty unique with Dragon. We're repressurizing with just nitrogen right now, which is a little bit unique. Obviously, you have nitrogen and oxygen in your atmosphere. With this, we have O2 flowing into the cabin through the suits, so we only need to add nitrogen. So we're able to just basically add a bunch of that to really start getting your pressure up. O2 continues to flow into the cabin through the suits, and we're going to continue pressurizing until we're pretty much right back at our 14.
Fan 1 coming on, medium speed.
Right at about our 14 or so PSI. And we're also looking at what the partial pressure of oxygen is, because we want to make sure the crew takes helmets off and everything, that plenty of oxygen in the cabin. And then we're going to change that injection rate to just help with the mixing. Is microgravity, everything's harder, everything's on hard mode, and you don't just have natural convection. So like, I mean, space station, I think I've heard it a bunch of times, Mike, like you just constant noise of fans.
That's right.
Almost.
Yeah, there's you've got to continually recycle that air, and one, to help get rid of the CO2, right? Because as they're taking in that oxygen, they're breathing out the CO2, and we need to get that out of the system, which is another important reason to have that air constantly circulating.
Yeah. Man, that felt really quick.
It did.
That was really cool to see them outside for the first time. And what they were actually doing out there is a bunch of pretty simple tests as it looked, but like this is just learning how the heck do you move, because like just moving around in microgravity is tough, right?
It is tough.
Dragon SpaceX, we're about 2.5 minutes from Tedra's handover.
EV1 copy. Out of 3.
Yeah, that movement is tough, and there is a big difference just of moving around when you're in your short sleeves like we're inside the capsule, and when you put on that spacesuit, it's much more challenging to move around with that on.
Yeah, and what they were really doing was just kind of like you put your hand on Skywalker, and then you're changing your pitch, you're doing translation up and down and everything. And then the one that I think is kind of cool is max reach, because like just going like that is, not easy.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things I thought was interesting is you heard, I think it was Sarah, talk about the horizontal rail versus the vertical and how much easier that was for her to grab onto or utilize versus the vertical one. So simple things like that, for us, it not a big deal.
Yeah.
But out there in the vacuum and in the microgravity environment, it does become a much bigger deal.
And you and Dan and I, we've never been in space, so we certainly appreciate all of your expertise that you'd be able to share with us throughout this morning's operations and contributing your 2 cents.
Yeah, no, thank you. It was great to be here. Just an incredible moment, not only for the Polaris Dawn, for all of SpaceX, and really for humanity, because it's just one of those small steps that's taken us that much closer to being that interplanetary species. So thank you very much for having me around.
Our pleasure. Awesome. You're welcome back anytime.
Excellent. All right.
Good to see you, Hopper.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
All right, so repress is continuing. We're a little over 4 PSI right now. Again, we're going to keep that going up until we're a little over 8, and then we're going to change our repress rate. We're basically just going to be injecting nitrogen for shorter periods of time. That's just going to help that atmosphere mix as we get the crew kind of back up to their normal cabin atmosphere that they haven't actually been at for the last couple of days, because we started this whole process like right after we got on orbit. Yeah,
it was almost like we launched them and gave them 2 seconds to acclimate and enjoy their cute 0G indicator, and immediately stepped into the pre-breathe in order to prepare for today's activity. And really, like you said, let them acclimate and let their bodies adjust. And, the success of that really was demonstrated today by the fact that we were able to step through all of the steps today without having to take the optional and available breaks to allow the crew members to adjust during... Oh, sorry, I thought we were going to get something there.
Yeah,
we're box
getting
coming in.
The Tedra's in and out, so we'll get it back. But.
So just the fact that the all 4 crew members were able to just go right along and didn't have to pause as the option was available, I think it's a testament to the preparation that they did before and during.
Garage check, EV1 good.
EV2 good.
We're good.
Part 2 good.
Just heard a quick check-in from them, so we're going to keep counting the PSI up until we get to about 8. We are going to do another leak check on the way up to our nominal cabin pressure. As you introduce atmosphere, you're introducing temperature changes, not just pressure changes, and so we'll get to a nice, pretty stable point when we're at 8, and then we'll let it hang out there for a couple of minutes, let the thermals kind of cancel out. That'll take about 5 minutes to do that. This obviously has to be done to make sure we've got a really tight seal with that hatch, as before we let crew get out of their seats, move about the cabin, anything like that. I want to make sure Dragon is fully recovered. We just use Dragon as an airlock.
Yeah, and actually the info that you were talking about, you see it there on your screen live with that telemetry there in the bottom left and bottom right hand corners. We can see the Dragon capsule and the suit pressures continuing to rise. It is incredible that we've only been in the EVA for 1 hour and 13 minutes. It flew by so quickly.
6 on cabin pressure, approaching 1 PSI on PPO2.
I'm sure for Jared and Sarah, it flew by even quicker.
Yeah. We just heard Jared call down. We're coming up on 1 PSI for PPO2, so what we're really tracking before we give the crew the go to get out of their suits is both the actual, like just the straight up what the absolute pressure is inside, but also what the partial pressure of oxygen is. We want to make sure you don't have a hypoxic environment inside. Basically, you want to get them. They're going to be pretty much right back at the atmosphere that we're walking around in right now before they get their suits off. Our EVA clock's going to continue to count until we hear the call for EVA operations complete from our core Arthur Burial. That's going to come once we are done with the repress operation. We'll see a couple of other things happen with the suits. They'll do kind of a final washout of the pure O2 environment in the suit using nitrox before they get out.
Nitrox being that same air mixture that you have in your scuba tank. If you've got any scuba divers out there, that nitrogen oxygen mixture. Nope, still just air.
They're just going to keep psyching you out. We should hopefully be getting video back from ground stations.
SpaceX, passing 7. Stand by for transition to repress 2 at 8.3.
Okay, copy that, SpaceX. We're following along. Repress 2 at 8.3.
Yeah, so once we transition to repress 2, once we're at about 8.3 psi, we'll stay there for about 2 minutes. And then once the cabin gets up to 9, we're going to pause the repress and we're going to do a cabin leak check. This is another kind of critical check. We did the initial one after they closed the hatch, where you're able to do just kind of a, let's look at the pressure. Is it increasing at the rate we expect inside Dragon? Yes, it is. And so we were able to confirm that seals and everything looked good. We're going to do another leak check now that we've got more pressure inside Dragon, just to really make sure that we've got a good seal on that hatch before we finish the operation. Coming up on 8.3. We should be hopefully just about a minute and a half or so away from ground station, so might get those views back inside of Dragon.
Yeah, it would be great to see them post EVA. Now, just like when we were depressurizing the capsule, there was the option to pause.
EVA repress 2. Crew ops check, EV1's good.
We're good.
And yeah, that comms that we're hearing.
About a half PSI before we get to the leak check.
Dragon SpaceX with you, monitoring for leak check at 9 psi.
The continual checks with all 4 crew members to make sure that everyone is good. If the answer to one of those checks was no, there would be an option in this repress sequence to pause, possibly to reduce the, allow for ear pressure equalization. But again, just like the way that we depressurized, now this repress, it seems to be going really smoothly.
Yeah, we're just about at 9. I'm going to say we're almost there, and then it's going to tick up. But we're going to pause at 9. We're going to do another cabin leak check. So we should hear that momentarily.
All right, we're in EVA repress 2, stop.
Dragon SpaceX with you in EVA repress 2, stop. Waiting 5 minutes for thermal stabilization.
And we're copy that, SpaceX. We're tracking. And crew for your awareness, we do a positive repress rate. We are 30 seconds into the leak check.
Like we mentioned earlier, right now this repress is being done with nitrogen. Once we get
your awareness, PPO2 is 1.35, halfway there.
They're still flowing that oxygen, and in a few minutes we will begin to flow. We'll do a flush of nitrox into the suits. All right, we got our views back.
There they are.
It's a little sad to see that forward hatch closed again.
It's got to be really hard when they tell you it's time to go back in.
Yeah.
Just one more minute.
Yep. It reminds me of when I was a kid swimming in the pool. You know, time to get out. Just one more minute.
I mean, it speaks to the professionalism for Jared, for Sarah, for the whole crew, really.
Yeah.
Like that's got to be, this is something they've been training for years. And it's got to be really hard not to go for those, that extra 30 seconds, but they're true professionals.
Yep. They know there's a timeline.
We're 2 minutes into the 8-minute leak check. Throughout check. One's good.
One good. 4-2 good.
TPO2 just passed 1.5.
We're a couple minutes into our leak check. You're seeing the pressure continue to tick up. We've stopped the nitrogen injections, but again, oxygen coming out of essentially a vent line on those suits. And that is why you're going to continue to see the pressure tick up. You heard Jared call out the PPO2. That's gone up. That's your partial pressure of oxygen. We're looking for that to get to over about 2.6, a little bit higher. And then our final actual, just ambient pressure inside Dragon is going to be right around 14.4 or so. And I mean, that's a little bit lower than what we're walking around in now. But if you're at a little higher altitude state in the country or something, that's what you might be sitting in right now in your house. And they haven't been at that pressure since they left her.
Yeah.
But after we get all the way up there, we're going to do kind of a final flush of the suits using that nitrox that Kay was talking about. That takes them out of that pure oxygen environment, and that's one of the final steps before we'll hear that call from Arthur of EVA operations complete, and that's when our clock's going to stop. Our spacewalk did start today at 3:12 a.m. Pacific, 10:12 UTC. It's continuing to tick up. Ours was unique. We talked about it a little bit with Mike. There's different rules for every single spacewalk. It's fun, a little challenging sometimes to track all of them. Even on the space station, there's.
We're halfway through the leak check. Still positive research.
We're about halfway through the leak check, so we got about 4-ish minutes left.
We can see the pressure inside Dragon stabilized during this leak check at 9.4. Helps to ensure that that forward hatch is properly sealed and shut. It's very similar to a suit leak check that we do in terms of sustaining a pressure and measuring that pressure over a period of time. Obviously the leak check for the capsule takes a little longer than the individual suit leak checks. But so far, so good. A little bit more than halfway through.
Yeah, bigger volume.
Check evaluation period start 3 minutes.
All right, so we hit.
Copy that, SpaceX. We're tracking.
We hit essentially a thermal stabilization. So again, this is the fun. I think it's chemistry. I'm not sure, but as you're raising the pressure, you're changing the thermal environment inside the cabin, so temperature goes up. Your temperature goes up, your pressure can go up. So you wait for all of that to kind of equalize, and once that gets at a steady state, you can do a real no-kidding pressure check on this hatch. And so we're underway with that. That's going to take a couple of minutes, and then we'll hear the results, and then look to resume with the repress. It'll slow down a little bit for the remaining of the repress. Kind of going in reverse. When we did the depress, that initial, a lot of that atmosphere was flowing over, and once we got down low, it started to slow.
What you do?
Really enjoying these in-cabin views. Everyone.
Dragon SpaceX for awareness. This leak check is looking good so far, but we're still going to wait the full 8 minutes.
Yeah, copy that, SpaceX. We're tracking.
Sometimes it seems as though the feed freezes just because everybody's relaxing as the.
We're coming up on 7 minutes in the leak check. It's 9.7. PPO2 is at 2.
Enough. The final minute of our leak check. Reports from the ground, everything's still looking good. Heard Jared report down that partial pressure of oxygen right at about 2. Once that gets to about 2.6, we can essentially stop flow of that pure oxygen to the crew suits. Is like 2.6 is right where we want to keep it when we're at our final pressure.
Dragon SpaceX, successful leak check. Stand by to restart or repress.
Copy that, SpaceX. We're following.
Great news there. Successful leak check of the cabin.
Repress 2. All right, crew, we're in EVA repress 2. As a reminder, an EVA repress 2 will complete when either PPO2 reaches 2.62 or cabin reaches 1 atmosphere. Right now, we're coming up on 10 psi for cabin pressure, and PPO2 is 2.2.
It's a really good explainer there from Jared. Again, those are the values we're looking at. We're seeing the PPO2, that partial pressure of oxygen, continue to tick up. Once that gets to about 2.62. We're going to be done flowing that pure oxygen to the suits of the crew. And then eventually we're going to get to 1 atmosphere. It's about 14.4 is our target for today. And then our repress will be complete. So this will go a little bit slower than the initial repress. This could take up to about 20 or 30 minutes, even in some of the times that we simmed it. You don't want to introduce them super quickly to a higher pressure. Anytime you're doing pressure changes, as gradual as you can make it, the better. And that's why we have like the built-in holds that we talked about that the crew can do.
Exactly. These are opportunities for the crew to pause the repress and just allow themselves to come to equilibrium.
Words are
really hard right now.
It is.
And we haven't had to utilize.
2.3 PPO2, targeting 2.62. Cabin pressure is at 10.3. If I was a betting man, I'd say we get to the PPO2 threshold first. At that time, O2 will switch to nitrox in the suit.
All right, good news there.
And cross check, you want to.
What's his name?
Dragon SpaceX, we concur with EV1 call.
Continuing to repress the cabin. We had a successful leak check, and you can follow along with the repress along with the data there at the bottom of your screen. As Jared said, we are targeting about 14 psia for cabin pressure, or when cabin PPO2, that partial pressure for O2 reaches about 2.6. So we are continuing to progress pretty well.
2.4. Cabin's 10.55.
However, as Dan just said, this portion of the repress could take up to 30 minutes, just so that we're allowing the crew to acclimate along with the capsule.
Really cool day so far. It was awesome to see them, out there going through the test matrix. Like, we only got to talk about it a little bit, but just some of the different tests that they were doing while they're out there. This is like fundamental. How do you do a spacewalk? Well, first of all, you use your hands a lot. And how are you going to be able to move around? This is the first time we've ever had the suit in that environment crew. And so they had basically a checklist of like, these are the things you're going to do. It was, use one hand and wave the other one around and see how well you can stabilize yourself. And
then rate that activity on a scale of 1 to 5 and report it back to. We could hear that a little bit in the activity of, okay, I'm doing this thing. Here's the functionality of that test. Yep. Yeah,
and then doing the reach test, doing the up and down, and they did it at the very end. You saw Jared go hands-free for a second, and that was we had a foot restraint in Skywalker as well. If you've ever watched a spacewalk in the space station, you've seen astronauts in the robotic arm getting flown around with just their feet strapped in. That's a pretty critical tool when you're working in microgravity, because otherwise, you go to swing the hammer and like it swings back at you. So you need something to kind of brace yourself, and a foot restraint can be really important.
Yeah. We also saw the helmet cam getting checked out. That was certainly a highlight for us to see what Jared was seeing, even though at that point I think we were in, the orbital night. But it was many amazing views, and it went by so quickly. Both Jared and
and we're back.
We got views again.
SpaceX is with you. Reminder to start manual timer on nitrox to suits.
Got that, SpaceX. We're standing by. There it is. Clock started. We're on nitrox pursuit. Cabin TPO2 is 2.16. And cabin atmosphere is 11.11.
Well, it might look like the feed is frozen. If you look closely, you can see small micro movements there with fingers and the strap above Anna's shoulder. We, unfortunately, due to ground station coverage, don't have video 100% of the time, even though we wish we did. That would be great. But we can see that Jared and Sarah are not strapped into their seats, of course, because they performed their EVAs, or their spacewalks, extravehicular activities, where Anna and Kid remained in their seats, the window seats, so we can see their safety harnesses still strapped in there. At this point in time, we are continuing with the repressurization of the Dragon capsule, Dragon Resilience. We had a successful leak check.
4-1 good. 4-2 good.
Commander Jared Isaacman continuing to check in with his three fellow.
Check secondary O2 valve open. EV1's open.
EV2's open.
4-1 open. 4-1 open.
4-2 open.
Continuing to repressurize the Dragon capsule. We're targeting about 14.1 psia for the Dragon pressure, which is the telemetry readout in the far bottom left corner of your screen.
Yep, and along with that, we're also tracking the partial pressure of oxygen. So we did hear that they've stopped the flow of pure O2 to the suits, and they've switched over to nitrox. So again, anything that we're flowing into the suits also gets introduced into the cabin atmosphere. It's an open loop system. It's how you essentially maintain pressure in the suit, since you're just constantly flowing that air in there to wash out any carbon dioxide they're exhaling, to actually function as they're cooling. So we're switching over to nitrox just to make sure we maintain kind of the right balance of nitrogen and oxygen in that cabin before they get to go to take their suits off. So we're already at that for the O2. And so we're on nitrox in the suits now, still injecting kind of the pure nitrogen into the cabin itself. And the teams just keep an eye on the O2 levels as we go throughout, and we can adjust our injections as we need to. So we're just kind of hanging out now, waiting until they get to that 14, a little over 14, and then the call we're going to be listening for is going to be EVA operations complete from Arthur.
We're 4 minutes into the O2 walkout. Cabin PPO2 is 2.9, cabin pressure 12.5.
You can see the Polaris Dawn crew continuing as we continuing to monitor the repress of the Dragon capsule. On the far left side of your screen is Mission Specialist and Medical Officer Anna Menon. To her left, or our right, is Mission Specialist Sarah Gillis. Both of these wonderful women are our fellow SpaceX employees. So incredible to see them in space doing amazing things.
Yeah, and seeing Sarah get to poke her head outside Dragon, that was, I mean, both of them have trained astronauts. They've basically gotten people ready to go do this, and it's got to just be really special to get up there and do it themselves.
Incredibly. And then to the right of Sarah was Commander Jared Isaacman, who was the who performed the first EV operation, or excuse me, EVA operation. So Jared went first, and then Sarah after him. And then on the far right-hand side of the capsule, so not this photo, but the live view inside, was Scott Poteet, prefers to go by his call sign Kid. He had the other window seat. Now, if you tuned into the launch phase of Polaris Dawn, you might recall that Scott...
Period. 3 PSA. Cabin pressure is 13.3.
Scott is actually our Polaris Dawn pilot, so in order to enable EVA operations, he and Sarah had to swap seats. So Sarah has been keeping the pilot seat warm for Kid.
Yeah, and like we talked about, we only saw Jared and Sarah actually get up and go outside, but all 4 of these crew members did a spacewalk today. All 4 were exposed to the vacuum of space. This is the first time that's ever happened in human history, having 4 people all at the same time.
Yep.
We saw Jared and Sarah go out and do those mobility tests. Anna and Kid, one of their kind of main roles was being the eyes back inside. Very similar if you've ever watched a space station spacewalk, where you'll have people inside who are able to kind of call out or fly a robotic arm or something. They're just a really important part of the team to make all of this work. Like, no spacewalk doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens in a vacuum, but like you're never doing it solo. And so they were largely making sure that umbilicals didn't get hung up and keeping eyes on seals and stuff like that for the crew. So
also keeping an eye on the umbilicals in case if it got wrapped around their foot, and just really acting as the assistant coach while the EVAs were underway.
Right, we're coming up on 14 psi. Again, we're already at the oxygen levels in the cabin that we'd look for, and so now we're just waiting until we get to that final pressure.
Technically, the EVA is still underway.
That's right.
We have not yet heard the call out, EVA complete. That will be coming after we get confirmation that the repress.
We're 9 minutes into the O2 washout, less than 4 minutes remaining. Cabin PPO2 is 3.1. Cabin pressure is coming up on 14.1. I want to review a few things. So when the timer reaches 13 minutes, we're going to shut down the nitrox flow to suits. Then we're going to close secondary O2 valves, and then you can use your manual vent valve into plate. When your visors, do not disconnect umbilicals. How copy? One's good.
Each is good.
One good.
Support two good.
Dragon SpaceX, we are less than 2 minutes from a Tedra's handover, but copy your call and plan. We concur.
So that was Jared just reminding the rest of the crew that when the timer hits 13 minutes, the order of operations, they have that manual valve there, and this is something that we've seen all morning is continual check-ins.
EVA repress is complete, continuing suit washout.
Copy that, SpaceX.
Great news there. Confirmation that Dragon repress is now complete.
So right now we're just waiting for that final, we call it the O2 washout. So again, we've been using nitrox instead of the pure oxygen into those suits.
For anyone that has joined recently, unfortunately, you missed most of the fun.
You'll have
I encourage you to rewind. Yep. Go back about an hour. We have had successful completion of both Jared and Sarah's spacewalks. We saw them move through their test matrix and perform the suit mobility tests and the testing of the Skywalker mobility aid located at the top of the Dragon capsule.
1 minute to go.
They moved through it quite quickly, really quite in the blink of an eye. And we've closed the forward hatch. We have repressurized the Dragon capsule, and we're now standing by for really the final operations of the morning. So yeah, unfortunately, if you only recently tuned in, you should definitely rewind and go back. There were some incredible views of the taking place during the EVAs. The crowd that we had in front of Mission Control here in Hawthorne was almost on cue. We're certainly excited, as were we, to see the views of Jared and Sarah emerging from the top of Dragon Resilience. It's been quite a morning, and I can't believe it's already almost 5 a.m. Pacific. We had
there it is. Arming, disconnecting hydroxy 2. And
One in yet?
yep, please. All right, check secondary O2 valves closed. EV1's closed.
EV2's closed.
4-1 closed.
4-2 closed.
All right, you're going to manually vent down.
Previously ringing.
Checkbox.
Yes, everybody.
Whew. Smell that. Space.
Dragon SpaceX, EV operations complete.
And that's
Copy that, SpaceX. We show the same. Nice job for everyone and everyone at SpaceX who made it possible. All right. Section 9. Turn all seats, push to talk to manual. Armed.
Execute.
Space.
Wow. If you're just joining us, we just heard the call out that EVA operations are complete, which marks the completion.
EV1, comm check on manual push to talk.
Manual push to talk, loud and clear.
All right, that's the crew just switching off from.
We have you loud and clear.
Just switching off from Vox and back onto the push to talk. That silence, really, that's it. That was the first ever commercial spacewalk.
And as you just heard and have been watching over the course of the last couple of hours, it has been quite the saga for SpaceX over the course of this morning, between the launch of the AST Space Mobile's 5 Bluebird satellites, the first of its commercial constellation, helping to expand space-based cellular connectivity, and then jumping right into the commercial spacewalk that you just saw begin, and now officially in the books for SpaceX and the Polaris program. One of the highlights of this mission, obviously, that is emblazed upon their mission patch, performing the spacewalk, was an important part of building the timeline of the time to get to this mission here, and the development of the spacesuits that all 4 crew members donned during this operation: Jared Isaacman, Kid Poteet, Menon and Sarah Gillis. Of course, a lot of data was gathered here, both visually and experientially, from the crew members, especially Jared and Sarah, being the two members of the Inspiration 4 mission that exited the Crew Dragon Resilience and used the Skywalker mobility system attached to the forward hatch. There's still a couple of days left here on the Polaris Dawn mission, so more to come from the adventure of these four astronauts before they are ready to splash down off the coast of Florida. Set to happen. Fall stays on track over the weekend here. Coming up next in the upcoming flight days, there will likely be some period of rest and, of course, more science and tech demonstrations happening today to close out flight day 3.
Decimal 3, cabin atmosphere is looking pretty good right now, very stable.
Yeah, copy that, SpaceX, and we are ready for your seat rotation.
SpaceX copies.
All right,
Report when
that
initiating.
is incredible news.
Coming up, flight day 4 will feature an on-orbit demonstration of the Starlink satellite internet technology. And I believe it was Sarah Gillis in the pre-launch press briefing who teased ahead that there would be some extra little additives that are a part of the Starlink demonstration. Didn't give a lot of hints in there, but the mission commit, or the mission director, I should say, Todd Erickson, did say that it may tie into the fundraising effort for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital that this mission is focused on. And then flight day 5, they will be making their preparations for re-entry for splashdown off the coast of Florida. And then flight day 6, they will be splashing down inside Dragon Resilience at one of 7 sites off the coast of Florida. Of course, we'll continue to track the progress of the Polaris Dawn mission and everything that's coming up over the next couple of days before they make their way back to Earth. And sometime after they're back down on the ground, there will be a post-mission press briefing. And of course, we will let you know as soon as we have more details on that and bring you that coverage as well. Want to thank all of you who have been with us throughout the duration of the morning. It has been quite an eventful day. Just want to thank a few more folks before we go ahead and close out the morning. A thanks to Shay Calandry saying happy walkies, you guys rock. Thank you. Nelson Reyes, one of our wonderful channel members, the very generous $20 super chat, saying thank you, Will, and the Spaceflight Now team for great coverage. Appreciate that, Nelson. Good to see you this morning. Patty Chichila, marking 2 months as a channel member, wishing the Polaris Dawn good luck. Carl Northeast gifting a Spaceflight Now membership, along with Nelson gifting 5. Appreciate the two of you. Adler's Clan, gifting $4 super chat. Appreciate that. Volodymyr Chepla joining us with channel membership at the pad leader level. M. Teresa marking 5 months as a member, saying this was an awesome first. It'll be great to see them progress to longer walks. And we'll see, yes, what Polaris 2 looks like and how they move the ball forward now that they've had an on-orbit demonstration of those spacesuits. Mira Ben, appreciate you, and Callistelia for gifting a cumulative 11 Spaceflight Now memberships between the two of you. Appreciate you spreading some generosity as we close things out. It is 8:05 a.m. Eastern. We began streaming with the AST mission now, oh gosh, almost 5 hours ago. So I think it's time to send the horses back into the barn, ladies and gentlemen. So on behalf of all of us here at Spaceflight Now, Stephen, Adam, our friends P. Karstens, Chuck and Jen Briggs helping with the launch support for the AST Space Mobile coverage. Our photographers Adam Bernstein, Michael Kane, mentioned Steven, worth mentioning again though, as our editor of Spaceflight Now and running the technical operations of the broadcast. Thanks to Callistia Lee, Stephanie B., who now the Aussie Space Girl, helping us hold it down in the live chat on both streams. Appreciate the two of you. Most of all, thanks to you for wherever you are watching from for one or both of our dedicated live streams today. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I'm Will Robinson Smith. It is Thursday now, Thursday the 12th. Hope you all have a good closeout of the week. Hope it is productive and restful, and you get everything done that is on your to-do/bucket list for the next couple of days. Coming up next on our calendar, we're looking at a Starlink launch in the not too distant future, potentially coming up later on tonight if the launch schedule holds. And then we've got another launch from the Cape of another pair of Galileo satellites. It's part of the European Commission's Galileo project, similar to the GPS system here in the United States. Last but not least, there's going to be a media briefing between members of the press and the crew of, I guess, I don't know if they're calling them the former crew of the Boeing Starliner crew flight test, but regardless, NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore, Sonny Williams going to be talking to folks on the ground coming up on Friday. So that's just tomorrow. So lots to look forward to. It's always a busy time covering the Space Beat. We'd certainly appreciate it if you'd hit that subscribe button on your way out the digital door and click that like button as well. We appreciate your time and attention. We certainly don't take it for granted. So thanks for stopping by for however long you happen to enjoy the live coverage. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I'm Will Robinson Smith. Once again, be good to yourselves, be good to others, and we will see you next time, folks. And until then, bye-bye.